Yo, what's up, everyone? Welcome to the Fantasy Basketball PH podcast. And again, this is your host, your fantasy Papi Roi in the house. And then this is our weekend gig. Of course, I'm with my boys, my bro chachos in the house. We are called the weekly Head3Head. So you have head to heads. And again, adding another head is better than two. So we call ourselves as a Head3Head. And of course, I am with NBA Fantasy Bible, DMAC, and then day to day guy, Arik Z. Hello, guys. What's up? How are you?
G'day, guys. Good to see you.
Good to hear all of both of you.
Yeah. So last episode was long, but I didn't receive any questions or any exaggerations from our viewers. So I guess we did well. I guess people enjoyed us, you know.
I received one from my wife.
Well, I guess he's the most important person, important feedback for you, are.
I'm lucky to be here this week alive after after 2.5 hours in the middle of the day. In your time, in your time district, it's evening now. In mine, it's the middle of the day. So I left my wife with the children, and she thought it would be only for 1 hour, and it became three. So you can imagine the response wasn't so.
Arik,
Right.
that's the
So
dedication. That's the dedication you've got to fantasy.
exactly,
Yeah.
I
exactly.
love it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Everyone, Arik is actually putting all of his chips already in our first episode. So that's how we do it here in weekly head to
yeah,
head, right?
yeah,
That's how
yeah.
we roll. That's how we roll. So for our episode for today, we're going to do a mock draft, which I'm pretty much excited. And if you are watching this, I'm pretty sure you should have noticed that the rank is actually updated like yesterday or the other day. So it's going to be interesting to actually distinguish the differences in terms of the ranking. And DMAC, I would like to ask you to like show your screen in 3 minutes. I've asked several friends and followers and viewers to join our draft. So it's a 12 team draft, and hopefully um people get to see themselves in our episode. And don't worry, as you can see, I'm gonna draft first, and then Dimak is in the middle, and then Arik is in the last pick. So we get all three perspectives of if you're gonna draft early, if you're gonna draft in the middle, or if you're gonna draft last. So it's a total package episode for today. And I think we're gonna do a couple of max more in the next episodes, just to especially if the Yahoo rankings adjust. But at least for today, it's going to be interesting. So quick question, Arik. Last pick, or who are you planning to pick actually?
I'm still not sure. I'm thinking about a strategy. I want to see who's left. Uh, I might do something that isn't the consensus right now, and pick Triple J in the one of my two picks. Uh, but I have a really good take about it. I'm not sure I'm gonna talk about this episode, but I have a nice take about Triple J. So more to come, even
There you
if it
go. There
won't
you
be
go.
today.
Eric got something for us, and I'm pretty sure this is very visible in the day-to-day app. As you can see, J to J, sorry, Triple J actually has a very generous rating in
Yeah,
Eric's
but
app.
this is the by we're calculating their z scores. Okay, so it's not like it's my draft. It's not like I'm going to take my projections and use it the ranking in the app and use it as is. Yanis, there isn't a first rounder. Okay, because if you use z scores, it's not even top 40, top 50. Last year was 100. It's ludicrous, I'm gonna pick Yanis in the first round. Okay, so this. You need to use the ranking. You want to understand. There are some players you have to see their punt rankings. You know, so uh, our app, it's not. We don't have. We leave you the choice how to use the stats. The data. We have our projections and the discourse and everything, and you use it like Basketball Monster.
Yeah, and then and luckily for us, Arik is always with us every week, so I'm pretty sure he'll definitely guide us as we go to our season, right? And how about you,
I'll give my
DMAC?
take. Everyone has his own take.
Yeah, there you go. And rightfully so. I totally suggest for us to have our own takes because that's gonna be one of my favorite flavors or angles in doing fantasy basketball. It's called fantasy for a reason. So you have to really be creative on your own. We have guides like the day-to-day app or the basketball monster or any very good references. If you follow NBA Fantasy Bible, he has rankings as well. So it's to each his own. DMAC, speaking of you, any particular player you are targeting in the middle round?
Yeah, I think when we're looking at tiers, I think 6 is actually a pretty good spot to draft from. Several players are probably capable of taking the 3 through to 6 spot. So I'll just wait and see what drops in my lap, so to speak. But just going back to Arik and position 12, I'd love to see him put his money where his mouth is, talking about Triple J last week as well. So that'll be very interesting, unless, of course, Giannis does slip. But yeah, question for you guys. Obviously, Papi, you're not going to be crazy and not take Jokic at number 1. But you guys thinking about going into a punt straight away, or you just see how things pan out?
Well, since I'm gonna draft Jokic, I'm gonna just see how it pans out. But how about you, Arik?
I'm thinking about strategy. Let's see. If I'm going to if I'll take Triple J, I guess I will punt maybe field goals and rebounds, or maybe go to assist and steals punt. We'll wait and see. I need to check who is left.
Yeah, and that's why we have a lot of leagues sometimes because we enjoy too much drops, right? Here in the Philippines, I have friends like they have like 3 to 4 accounts. Shout out to our commissioner, a good friend, Jojo Legaspi, and the other friends that we have in our group that usually drops every other day. That's how we love draft picks. We have a lot of what they call this leagues right now. Um Going back to DMAC, some GMs doesn't like going in the middle because they thought that in the first or the last rounds, usually there's a run. Like if there's a run of centers or a run of guards, and then the middle pick usually is being put into position to really, either reach for a player just for the sake of really getting his guy. So what can you say about people who gonna draft in the middle? Any tips or any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm comfortable in the middle stage of the draft. Look, people may say you need to reach for your player, but also the counter is that players will also drop to you as well. So I'm actually looking forward to it. You get extra time to think about your pick as well. So allows you to think about your punt or any other strategy that you're taking on. So I actually don't mind that middle stage, particularly when you're looking at the first couple of rounds as well. I think, all right, here we go. 9 seconds, 8 seconds, Papi. Let's get to it.
Okay, so while I'm gonna use, I'm not gonna draft it already, but I'm just gonna use my time to actually shout out first some of our participants we have here: Carl, Kremen, Daddy Lags, Jason, AJB. Is it our good friend AJ in the house? RJ, Matt, JJ, Alwin, Christopher from KPTV, and then and Matt, I guess. So yeah, shout out to you guys. So I'm gonna pick here, of course, Nikola Jokic. I don't think we need to spend time to explain why he is number 1. So
No, we really don't.
so let's just see who goes second because usually this is something that people justify. So we have here Joel Embiid followed by Luka Doncic. Is it? Do you think Joel Embiid still arguably the number 2 player, or Luka or other player is knocking in the door? Arik.
Excuse me, I was concentrated in the
Oh,
draft.
sorry.
What?
I'm just asking about the number 2 pick. Is Joel Embiid like lock for number 2 or Doncic or
I tell you the truth, I don't think it really matters. Okay, all of the picks, it's a coin flip between Embiid, Luca, Halliburton, all of these names, Shea Gilgus, all of these names are nice. Wait a second, it's my
yeah,
pick.
go ahead.
On the
You
clock,
do your
Arik.
pick. So I let Dima carry over. This is kind of like in real time. So that's the reason why we're trying to adjust depending on the picks that we have. So going back to you, Arik, you mentioned about depending, or it won't matter, but um, is it so? Sometimes it matters in a sense that GMs has this what do you call this strategy to either, hey, let me start off with a big, so I have already a big first hand. So I'm gonna go Joel Embiid. But some GMs usually starts with either SGA, Luca, or Tyrese Halliburton because yeah, I'm gonna pump in assist because it's a scarce category. So for you, does that matter?
No, because that if you either way you started really well, and there's still enough players from each category to add. I don't see the big difference here. Okay, if you're taking Lucas, so you're probably going to go and punt free throws, right? So I think you should take them. Uh, 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 as part of a whole strategy. Okay, if you prefer punting, points or maybe rebounds, so you have Halliburton. If you prefer punting, maybe assists, you can go with Embiid. So or maybe assistant steals, although Embiid he has a good steal rate, but he suits Embiid suits a lot of punts. So it depends if you're entering with a strategy pre-draft. If you want to punt threes, so you can take Shea. Uh, if you had something in mind before, so take the player that suits. And if not, I don't see the big difference between them. I don't think that this choice will win you a championship. Okay, I think the other parts of the draft, the more difficult, the less sexy parts, they are the parts that give you a championship.
There you go. And then DMAC, you are how what's your take on Kyrie Irving? Are you kind of like confident with Kyrie Irving? Is this something that you think
Papi,
is a steal?
just interrupting. I hope you do have a pick up your
Yeah,
sleeve
I
or
already
queued
have
someone,
a cue.
which is
Yeah.
fine. But yeah, I think Kyrie at that spot, a nice compliment for Tyrese Halliburton. And contrary to a few, I like to get those scarce assists to begin with as well. So I think Kyrie at that spot, and I'd looked at his X rank as well, had gone up to 8, which is pretty crazy. But to get him in the second round or middle of the second round, I'm really happy with.
Yeah, and partnering those two guards with a lot of efficiency is going to be very good foundation. So here I am actually drafting a big and a forward. So I drafted Carl Anthony Towns. Just swipe an efficient big just to partner with Nikola Jokic, and then I swipe Jimmy Butler so I could get some assists, additional steals, and of course that boost in free throws made that for me is an undervalued category that people sometimes doesn't give emphasis on because there are only few players or picks that can influence your free throws. So I think for me it's a little bit valuable at least on my take. I'm looking currently at our picks here. Of course, we're gonna review this later, but I haven't really seen a lot of wow picks or anything peculiar, but James Harden at 29. Is the situation of James Harden really impacting his value? I'm gonna ask D-Mac here because Arik is preparing for his pick.
It absolutely is. Absolutely is impacting his value. And I think, everything's under question with him if he's actually going to leave Philly, which is likely. It may not happen before the start of the season, but it will probably happen. So it absolutely is dropping him down. And I think he's got the stats set to be a potential first rounder, but because of the question marks around him and his availability to start the season, he is dropping into the third. I've even seen in some mocks going into the fourth, which is pretty crazy to think about a former number one in fantasy sports.
Yeah, and speaking of someone that is expected to be a little bit, just a little bit torn in terms of how people, you know, um, choose a side, but you picked Cade Cunningham, and then there's several people or a lot of people expecting big things from him. Some people, or actually, there's also a lot of people who are kind of like hesitant just because of course, the injury and all. How confident are you with Cade Cunningham?
I like him in the third, and I know he's going in the second, which is pretty rich for my liking. But in the third, I think he's got the value. I don't really care about the turnovers as well. So he's going to provide an all-round stat set. He will give you fantastic free throw shooting. He may struggle from the field goal situation. However, you can see I've already started out with a very guard-heavy lineup, so I will be attacking those centers in the coming rounds.
Yeah, and there will be a run in that round for several centers. So yeah, that's a good strategy getting back to back to back guards for DMAC. Let's look at our picks here. Still pretty much standard. I haven't seen any surprise picks from our draftees for this specific mock. And then let's ask Arik with how he builds his team here. He currently just swiped Nikola Vucevic, one of the steadiest pick, I guess, in the early rounds.
I'm punting assists and steals. Okay, so I'm trying to get as players that have high free throw percentage, because when you're punting assists, you're not taking the guards with high volume free throw percentages. That's why I took Vooch and with Jaren Jackson, and now I don't need the high volume if I have a lot of bigs that shoot about 80%. I have Durant, I have Jamal Murray, so I'm pretty good at the free throws. And of course, now I'm pretty strong at blocks, and I need to take care of, the points. The rebounds will come because I'm gonna pick another big. So I'm pretty comfortable with my picks now.
Uh, just a quick question for you, Arik. At least some of the people I know kind of like paves away from Jamal Murray with the association with his career, wherein Jamal Murray is only good during playoffs and during regular season is just, you know, it doesn't hurt you, but in head-to-head formats, it doesn't also give like a big push to other stats. So what can you say about that?
Jamal Murray was crazy good before he got injured. He was really, really good in the regular season. Okay, he was ranked about 30, and the last 3 months before he got injured, he was a second rounder, I think. And he needs to be an all-star, and hopefully an all NBA team, for if he'll want a contract extension, a max, a super max. So he needs to be in one of the starting fives. So I believe he's going to have a really big season this year.
Yeah, and then he also didn't play for Canada. So he is super well rested. So
Yeah,
uh,
he and Jokic, they're getting ready for the season. They want a repeat. He's going to kill it. I really like his outcomes this season. I trust him. Okay, I trust him.
there you go.
Yeah, yes, he in the playoffs he's great. Okay, but I think it's time for him to have a strong regular season as well. And I don't think he as well don't want it. I think he wants it. Okay, he wants to be an all-star. He wants to be an all NBA.
But
And now he's got the opportunity. He's finally well with a great team around him. And now with Bruce Brown gone, they need him more. They lack depth in the guards department. So
yeah, and it suits very much with your plan and in your strategy as well. So for me, I just picked. So since I have Jokic and kind of like picked several steady players in the first in the second and third round, I actually put my foot a little bit in the risky upside side, even though there are several good players that I saw during my pick. So the reason why I chose OG Ananobi and Tyrese Maxey here is just banking on the narrative of the Toronto Raptors and the Philadelphia 76ers. So the moment that James Harden gets traded, or the moment that Toronto Raptors decide that, hey, let's just trade Siakam and then trade Gary Trent Jr. and then let's go young with Scotty Barnes and maybe OG Ananobi. So for me, they are already in this area right now. And then the moment that happens, it puts them like around or at two higher. That's just my take. So that's the reason why, again, I kind of like tried choosing these players, especially as I start off my team as a steady group of players. How about you, DMAC? Any players that you found, you know, picked earlier, or you expected that should have been picked at this point? Because I kind of like browse at it and it seems like pretty steady.
Yeah, I was able to pick up Paul George in the fourth round. I think that's great value. We know about his injury history and his concerns around playing those games, but he's got that upside as well. And when you can get someone of that value and that level of talent in the fourth round, I'm all in on that one. Apart from that, I think it's been a pretty steady type of draft at this stage. Nothing that's really stood out as being crazy.
Yeah, totally agree. And then
oh man, my turn.
well, it's Arik's turn. Let me check several names here that I'm super interested. Who will pick them, and then how early will they get picked? So number one is Zion Williamson. I'm thinking usually this is the round, at least in mocks, that I see him get him picked. And then to be honest, some people picks Jamorant in the following round. So I'm kind of like interested if that happens in this MAC. But given that some of our participants here are 10-year GMs, I don't think they would definitely pick them as early as that. At pick 59, Paulo Banquero by Papi Christopher from KPTV. Do you think this is a fine pick at pick 59, or is it a little bit early?
Oh man, such a bad pick at 61, but I got nervous and didn't. Okay. Sorry to interrupt. I was
Yeah.
mad at myself.
Well, just going back to Bankero, Papi, I'm just looking at his build. Davis, LeBron, Ant, Fox, Bankero. I think that's a clear punt free throw team. So it's early for my liking, but in that build, it probably works, and he's got scope to improve. He's the alpha on that team, probably alongside of Franz, but he's the 1A, and I'm on the clock, so let's just check this guy out. Geez, Zion is very tempting there, but I've got some risky picks already with Kyrie and Paul George, so I'll probably avoid at this stage. Let's go. Jalen, Chris Paul. You're not going to talk me into Ja Morant.
I'm pretty sure
Personal.
you won't draft Jammer at this early.
I'm going to go safe.
Oh, I
Okay,
should have picked someone else.
Yeah, looking at it, before my pick, Arik, my question here is Brook
Yes,
Lopez, pick
yes,
63. Is still
yes.
this a fine pick here?
I,
Again, a lot of analysts are saying he's going to drop his usage, is going to be the minutes, and of course the durability at age 35 as far as I'm concerned. What can you say
as
about that?
far as Lopez, I'm really concerned about him. I'm really cold on him. I don't want to take him before pick 80, and I'm pretty sure someone will take him sooner. So I guess I won't have him in any one of my drafts, as well in my auction. Most of my leagues are auction drafts. And I'm pretty sure that someone will pay more than I'm ready to pay for him. So it is what it is, you know.
Yeah. And then me, I'm currently that I just pick Chris Middleton. I think it's a value pick here. Even though
That's a great
at,
pick. Yeah, it's a
in the
great pick.
back of my hand,
Amazing pick, 70 seconds.
yeah, and in the back of my head right now, I was contemplating between picking Chris Paul and uh Tyus Jones, and I was almost similar fit in terms of being a assist to turnover ratio point guards, but I kind of like chose the younger ones. So I chose Tyus Jones here. Um, Let me check your pick recently. DMAC, you chose the number 2 guy in Brooklyn Nets. What what made you pick Cam Johnson? Is there any expectation for from you for Cam Johnson to have a value at this area? So what needs to happen for Cam Johnson to be a top 50 player?
Not a great deal. I think he's established himself as one of the key pieces on that team. Just it's now my pick. So Papi, thank you for trying to distract me. It's a good work on that one. I think I need my guys. I think I need my big guys now.
Yeah. So while Dimak is
I love Cam Johnson at 67.
yeah, any specific value role or stat that you love about Cam Johnson, Arik?
The overall outcome, the overall, I'm pretty sure that he will be top 50 player on a per game basis. Okay, and I really like value. I don't disregard turnover, so in that aspect, I think he adds. The only thing he doesn't add is a lot of assists. But you know, if you're taking care of it early, you don't have to punt assist or something to have him. So he can give you the 3-pointers, the good free throw percentages, the low turnovers, some points, some steals.
Yeah, and actually he before end of the season, I saw him also do some playmaking. So it's going to be interesting how it works this season. DMAC, a couple of picks after you, Zion Williamson was picked at pick 70. There's a lot of pick coming out of my mouth. But what can you say about this? Is this something that you find valuable at this range?
I'm looking at his build. He started with Luka, so I guess that goes into the punt free throw, but then he's built it around Fred VanVleet and Kawhi. So it's quite a balanced team. So Kawhi and Zion on the same team, probably not for me. A little bit too risky in that probably games missed. But at 70, you know, you look at that value, it's pretty hard to resist. I was very tempted at my spot just a couple of picks earlier.
Yeah,
I will say there was a pick after my Daniel Gafford, Buddy Hield, and I didn't want to pick on AJB, but Buddy Hield, with the talk of him probably leaving in a trade or being relegated to the bench for the Pacers, it's probably a little bit high, and even for round 7.
Yeah, and I can't see. I'm probably wrong, but it's hard for me to visualize a better situation for Buddy Hield coming out of the Indiana Pacers, especially with the teams that could possibly get him. So that's the reason why I'm a little bit conservative about Buddy Hield, as well as the steals that comes in, and the efficiency that he brought last season. I'm not sure how would it be better this season. But on the flip side, I'm pretty much excited for Bruce Brown and Ben Matherin the moment that Buddy Hield gets traded. Though it's going to be interesting who comes back, but I'm pretty sure it's better if the Indiana Pacers get some picks right or other players and then let Bruce Brown and Ben Matherin do their thing. Um, DMAC, what are your plans right now? In your team, you have a solid core already. Any particular players you're targeting? Uh, I don't think you're gonna say it to us, but maybe some stats so you won't get sniped.
Well, you guys can't snipe me unless these guys are listening in. I'm going for my big men, and I think I'm actually surprised that Arik didn't take one of these guys. He's gone Tobias Harris and Austin Reeves. I'm going back, and look, I'm weighing up Markel Fultz, but I think I'm pretty good with assists, so I'm going Mark Williams.
There you go. Mark Williams, one of the darling of the crowd right now. And then surprisingly, Zach Collins and Okongwu was picked. Not surprisingly, but more of like surprisingly in a sense that we know their value. They should be picked around this area. But most of the time, they are names like Mitch Robinson in the past. Who else? Andrew Wiggins in the past. D'Angelo Russell in the past goes ahead after them. So this is how the point I'm gonna make is this is how we evolve as GMs. People now have a lot of information in their hand. People observe the differences and the gap happen from one season to another. So I really appreciate that because the in the past couple of years, there was a run in the years wherein people just drafts based on names. Hey, D'Angelo Russell is from the LA Lakers. Let me draft him. Ice in my veins. So I really appreciate that the leagues are getting hard because we love very good competition. Um, uh, Arik, what's your
Yes.
strategy at the turn?
Again, I'm taking the. I have the same strategy. I'm punting assists and steals, and I'm now trying to assess what stat I miss. I still have a lot of players that are suiting me. Okay, I don't need a lot of centers because every center suits me in my punt. So it was much more important to me to get player like Reeves with high percentages as a guard, and he's a player that doesn't have any value from steals. He's a horrible at steals. So it was more important to me than to get a good center, a better per game center, because I need the guard sport now more than I need another center. I can have a few more center as the draft continues.
Yeah. And then just a quick recap on my end. I just did a back-to-back big. I was expecting someone like Okongwu is still available or someone like Dan Gafford that people in our draft here are tenured and great GM. So what am I thinking? Of course they won't be available in my
Need
end.
to
So
qualify.
I actually just picked Jalen Duren and Wendell Carter Jr. hoping that hopefully that Wendell Carter Jr. is going to be a value pick here. You know why? Because I think the reason he got dinged is because of the injury that he had like in the past seasons. But for me, I was thinking that Wendell Carter Jr. or the Orlando Magic rather gives more room for their players to really heal or take time because they aren't planning to really win in the past two seasons. But I think this season they're going to be more competitive. So I'm expecting a lot from Wendell Carter Jr. here. People usually forget him in the runs of big. So I think I get a value pick here for a big at pick 97. And of course, Jalen Duren. If you miss out on Gafford, you miss out on Okongwu, you miss out on Mark Williams. I usually pick Jalen Duren. So I guess that's just just I'm kind of like I'm a simple person. Just put Franklin's there. Okay, so DMAC, is this the range you kind of like start choosing upside over, the usual steady players?
It's about this range. It's about this range. I still like to fill out probably the first 10 picks with real consistent players, but round 10 to round 11, not a great deal of difference in terms of the overall value. So you do sometimes look for these value picks. So look, it's probably a little bit early, but I love this guy.
Oh,
It's a
it's
Trey
not
Murphy.
early.
So
If we're playing head-to-head, not early at all.
yeah, someone's excited to add something after the draft because he's gonna put Trey Murphy the third in the IL or IL plus. So it usually
Yes,
exciting if you do that.
Yeah,
he'll play
really
in the
depends on your
playoffs.
league settings.
He'll be ready. He'll be back when December, something like that. Maybe the longest I can think is the longest absence is still January, and I believe he'll be back sooner. If you have good enough team, you'll get Trey Murphy to the playoff with it's such a pick. It's a great pick.
Yeah.
He'll take a bit of time to ramp up, particularly with Zion, full team, Ingram, Zion, full complement of players. So he won't be going in playing 32 minutes a night straight away. He may take a lot of rest nights as well. So just he'll ease in, but it'll be a nice ease in to get some momentum towards the end of the or back end of the season. Oh, Paul Reed,
Yeah.
Papi.
I'm gonna, at least for this is a Mac drop. So you know what? I'm gonna ride the hype.
Why not?
Let's go, Paul Reed. And I'm really studying the minutes distribution, the possibilities for the Philadelphia 76ers. In real drafts, I'm definitely not gonna pick Paul Reed this early, but you know what? I think he's really in the path to a season that almost similar to Chris Boucher's, Robert Williams in the past. So if you ever missed two big uh big guys like the Okongus, the Dan Gaffords that helps the Kesslers in the early and the middle drafts, I definitely will target Paul Reed in the back end of the draft. I'm really curious in for Arik's upside picks in the last couple of rounds. Any thoughts, DMAC, on who do you guess is Arik's last two picks?
Look, he started strong with blocks with Jaren Jackson Jr. In the second round, but I'm looking through his team. He's struggling with blocks, so I'm thinking he may pick up a big guy. But I'm also looking for
I'm not
those types.
struggling with blocks. Why? I have Jackson, Durant to have blocks, Derek White as blocks as a guard, Vooch a bit, Aiton a bit. If you can see, Zubat, every one of my players. Excuse me, a lot of my players have blocks. I need 3-pointers now and points, so it's harder to me to think. Oh, okay. I guess I'll take him. Let's just wait and see.
Yeah, but if that's the case, you won't have a hard time getting 3 points in the latter part of the rounds because there's a lot of them.
Exactly. I guess I'll take.
So in terms of runs, DMAC, anything in particular you observe or notice this season? What number one is obvious, right? The blocks, the big man runs. But other than that, any particular trend that you've noticed that maybe not all kind of like notice it?
Yeah, I think going hand in hand with blocks, it's also the rebounds as well. But some of the early runs I've noticed in mock drafts, people are, I wouldn't say reaching, but are preferring to get their assists quite early, just because of the statistical scarcity that we've mentioned many a time. Not unusual for that to happen. We've seen that in previous years, but even more so this year. I think it's super competitive to get those guys, knowing that we can get the bigger guys later on in drafts.
Yeah, and then if you also check the difference between the early rounds and the middle to late rounds of assist, the guards in the early rounds are what, at least 7 to 10 assists per game on an average. And beyond that, it's almost 4 down. So sometimes getting like a Kyle Anderson later comes in handy if you really miss out on the guard. So to all viewers that are gonna see this episode, when we say assist, don't box yourself like, hey, I need a guard to get assist. There's several ways to get dimes. Like for example, if you started a big with like a Vucevic and then you have a Wendell Carter Jr., they are and Zach Collins. Those bigs are actually decent in terms of providing dimes. Arik, are you
Yes.
happy with your draft as of the moment?
I'm pretty happy. I'm strong at about 5 to 6. I'm really strong at 5 to 6 categories according to my projections. I can be better at 3 pointers, but as you said, this is the easiest category to get from the waiver wire. I'm strong. I'm really strong at both percentages categories. Really, really strong at field goals and free throws, something that is hard to do. So I think my strategy worked well. Uh, and don't forget, I'm picking from the 12th spot. It's a really bad year to pick from the 12th spot. So all in all, as I'm watching my projections, I'm using now a Basketball Monster. I'm using I put in my projections and I'm using
The tool, right?
the draft tracker and it looks fine. It looks fine. I'm really weak at steals and assists like I wanted. And I have 5 strong categories and 2 decent ones. So I'm okay.
Yeah, and then later on we'll definitely analyze our drafts. So everything's complete now. Of course we'll give some time or spend some time analyzing our drafts and some picks that we saw here. Just some quick questions first. Let's start off with DMAC. Any particular player you believe should have been drafted here that are still in the free agent?
Let's have a look, shall we? Let's take a look at that list. Asar Thompson, I think he would be definitely a pick of mine if I was to have my go again. But I also took Jalen Johnson as a late round flyer. I think Thompson's got a little bit of a runway there in Detroit, so I think he will be good. Let's have a look. Oubre's been picked up by the 76ers, but I don't think he'll be fantasy relevant in standard leagues at this stage with a full complement of players. Perhaps if Harden leaves and a similar ilk of player or a usage player doesn't return, perhaps he could be one of the guys, but probably I'd leave him on the waiver wire for someone else. Sadiq Bey, if you wanted those 3-pointers, he has a solid role at the Hawks at this stage, so he would be a nice pick at probably the last stage or the last round. Same goes for Amen Thompson, just the upside, but a little bit
I
of...
took him right now. I
You took
wanted your
Sadiq Bey,
opinion
yeah.
about him. So
Yeah, I think he's steady. He's not going to set the world on fire, but I think he'll give you those 3-pointers. He's actually he's a solid play, he's solid role, as I was saying. So not a bad last round pick. And as we know, typically it's your last 1 or 2 guys that you tend to stream through anyway. So it's one
yes,
of those upside plays. So yeah, you can't really go wrong at this stage.
Yeah, and then from my end, several players that is notable for me in terms of possibly categorical help, just in case you needed some punch at the end of your draft. Surprisingly, I like some old dudes here. Like for example, Gordon Hayward. If you're actually seeking for like an efficient player that also gives you good free throws made, I guess Gordon Hayward is a good option, even though we might expect him to be injured at some point. But good thing about him is good thing about our leagues now. Depending on your leagues, by the way, but in standards, you usually have IL plus or IL. So I guess I would suggest Gordon Hayward here. Another thing here is Quentin Grimes. I guess he has a path to really provide some value here, steals and snipes. Who else? I think also Eric Gordon is interesting. If you check the NBA ads in Vegas, is one of the frontliners in the Six Man of the Year award, unless there's gonna be a trade, of course. But looking at it, if his takes and nothing changed that match in the Phoenix Suns, he might get some additional playmaking chores. So even though he's old, even though he doesn't offer a lot of upside, but if you get a steady, I don't know, 4 assists, a couple of threes, and just 12 to 15 points, I guess that's decent. And then lastly for me, it's very interesting to really check out the Lakers, the Clippers players, because they start the season with several back-to-backs, and then we expect Kawhi Leonard to really, and possibly Paul George, to sit out a couple of games. So it's interesting for me who gets that shot. Is it Terrence Mann? Though his fantasy is not that fantasy friendly of a player. We also have someone like uh, uh, Bones Highland that could also step up, because the likes of Norman Powell will definitely be drafted. So I'm looking at those two guys on who possibly steps in. Maybe Kevin Martin Jr. as well. Kenyon Martin Jr. Rather. Okay, so
Arik as well, Danny Avdia, your countryman, he's left on the
Yeah.
board as well. I think he's got a solid role. He did
Yeah,
really well at the back end of last season.
He could be worth owning or picking up at some point of the season. But there's a lot of medium upside players to pick in the last rounds. So I can see the logic that he stayed in the pool and no one took him. It's not like he has the upside of someone, like you, Papi took. I forget his name, from Philly.
Paul Reed.
Yeah, it's not like he's Paul Reed or something. He's got the upside, but there are better choices here.
Yeah. So Arik, while you're out there, run us with your team. Share your thoughts about how you built your team, and also your expectation on what you've built over there.
Okay, so I'll tell you what. Just a second, let me see my team. Okay, so I wanted to punt, assist, and steals. The 12th spot is really difficult spot. I think this year, if I'll have a league that I'm picking 12th, I'll have to come with a strategy, with already a game plan for a punt. I don't see myself going for value from this pick, because there are risky picks like Davis, or low upside picks for low value picks there. So I had to do something, to go to pick a strategy, to pick a punt. I decided on an assist and steals because Durant and Triple J were free. I could have done better, okay? I prefer not to pick Derek White, to pick Tyler Hero instead, or Simons. There are much better picks there, because I need more points. I'm pretty weak at points. My team pretty weak at points. But I think there are enough categories that I'm decent in. Free throws, field goals, rebounds, I'm pretty strong. 3 points, I'm decent, and I can take from the pool as many I want. And blocks, I'm pretty strong, because I only have one elite blocker, but Derek White can give me one a game. Durant can give me 1.2, 1.3 a game. Vooch can give me almost one a game. Ayton as well, about one a game. Zubac more than 1 block per game. Patrick Williams, about block per game. If you take all of them together, you see that I have about 0.85 blocks per player. That is pretty high. Okay, it's only, you know, I'm only looking at projections, yeah, but I don't have something else to lean on. And if I'm leaning on the projections, my team is pretty strong at blocks. And I'm really, really strong at turnovers. Sorry, DMAC. I know you said that I can win by not playing the player, but if I'm not playing with the player, I'm losing at the other 8 categories, okay? I think I can play with a lot of players here and still win. If I'm playing against a team that doesn't punt assist, with this team, I can play 10 games more and still win the turnovers, okay? So I'm pretty fine with the team. There are a lot to do here. If it's a league with trades, I think I can swap a few players. I think I can pick up a few players from the pool, but the base is strong. I like it.
Yeah, and I like how you kind of like really strategize on it. So aside from the players, I think we've learned something from Arik, specifically for me as well. We've learned like how he strategized in terms of, hey, this player could probably get this number of stats, and if I divided into the number of players that I have, that's possibly the average stats that I get, because sometimes it gets overlooked, that type of strategy. Some people that are just excited to get players just think, hey, this is a blocker, this is a stat padder, or that. So that was a great share there, Arik.
Again, I could have done better, okay? If I was prepared, if I knew that I'm going to pick 12th, but I decided not to do it and not to strategize before because I wanted the experience of doing it on the move. You know,
Yeah.
I think it's more exciting that way. But when I have my drafts, if I know prematurely that I'm picking 12th, be sure that I'll know every pick, who I'm picking, and you know, with alternatives.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Um, uh, DMAC, is there a way for you to have a screenshot of that, or so at least we could have a check on it, because we only have around 2 minutes before this page closes. So while DMAC is checking on that, let me run down my team here. So where's my team? There you go. So I start off with Jokic, of course. So my bigs are Jokic, Towns, Duren, Wendell Carter Jr., and Paul Reed. A little bit down on points there in terms of how I assess my bigs, but they give me a lot of rebounds and a lot of blocks already. Especially the upside of Paul Reed. When I checked out the draft, I was checking it. Actually, I'm the one who kind of like had a surprise pick by picking Paul Reed in that area. So I guess, maybe that's the fun in this map drops. My forwards is Jimmy Butler, Chris Middleton, Bruce Brown, and Tari Eason. So in terms of counting stats, steals, rebounds, additional boosts and assists and points, I think I'm fine. The only lacking in this build is I think I forgot to really get some players that actually give me 3 points, especially with Jimmy Butler and a lot of bigs in my roster. So I guess that's something that I should have improved on to be a little bit more to have a better additional counting stats in my area. In my assist, I have couple of assist guys here. I have Tyrese Maxey, Tyce Jones, and then I don't count Bruce Brown as a point guard, even though he has a point guard eligibility, because I'm just thinking, how would Halliburton impact Bruce Brown in terms of providing assists? Of course, every time that Halliburton, sits down and then Bruce Brown is actually in the court, he'll probably get a couple of dimes, but I don't expect him to provide a lot of dimes on how he played in the Denver Nuggets rotation. So I won't back on that, but if that happens, then it fits me very well. And then lastly, I chose Javon Carter my last pick because I was really struggling to get another guard. Javon Carter also helps me in the 3-point category, and I think he's gonna start over Ayo Dosunmu as their guard. One good reason is he plays defense better. He, for me, shoots better. Though Dosunmu has, has more energy, has more Patrick Beverly vibe that I think the Chicago Bulls kind of like lost when they move on with Beverly, someone to act like a dog alongside Alex Caruso. But it's going to be just around 25 minutes. So as a last pick, I guess that's totally fine. Dima, how about you? How was your team?
Yeah, I didn't go in thinking about a punt. I think pretty balanced team. And I haven't really punted anything strongly. I think I'm quite weak in rebounds, which is okay. I can pivot away from that. But starting off with Halliburton, nice pick at 6. I think he dropped to me after SGA and Jason Tatum. So I think that was an easy pick for me. Kyrie in the middle of the second, I think, again, a nice value pick. Of course, he's got his issues, but it doesn't tend to be injury related. So if he can have a nice, steady influence next to Luka this season, I think you've seen his X rank go up to 8, getting him in the middle of the second round, I think, at 19. Pretty happy with that one. Cade, I know that's a little bit early for some, but again, I'm riding the hype on that one. And I think with disregarding the turnovers, I think he can have a magic season. Paul George in the 4th round, really happy with that one. Yes, again, with some concerns around health and staying on the court, but I know that he doesn't like sitting. He's said it publicly. He's now got a U-Butte podcast going. So he's talked about having a bit of a comeback season. I know that the Clippers are really wanting to have that with Paul George and Kawhi and build that momentum. So health is the biggest thing for the Clippers. So I think Paul George can be a top 20 type of player this season. So getting him at 43rd overall, I think is great value. Zach LaVine, that's nice and steady, but we looked at the end of last season. He came back from injury, but his usage picked up. So a little bit of usage taken away by the other guys, but he's now picked up. So I'm hoping that momentum can carry over into this season. There's no real change to the roster, so I can't see that changing. DeMar DeRozan is another year older, as they all are, but I think that Zach probably will lead that team more so than DeMar DeRozan. So getting him at 54th, steady pick, boost my points and my threes, but the points are quite difficult to get sometimes in the latter stages of the draft. Getting Cam Johnson, we spoke about in the 6th round. I know Arik's quite high on him as well. So I know building that momentum coming out of the World Cup. He didn't have a huge role, but he did look good when he was on the court. So I think he continues that momentum for Brooklyn this season. Then I went for my bigs, and I needed some blocks. So I went Dan Gafford. So he can provide potential 2 blocks per game if he can stay on the court. He does get into foul trouble on occasion. So that's the one pitfall, I guess, but I'm willing to take that in round 7 for Daniel Gafford. Another similar pick is Mark Williams, and again, a lot of hype around Mark Williams coming into his sophomore season. So I'm really liking his potential this season, not just this season, but carrying on into future years as well. Miles Bridges, I know for ethical reasons, a lot of people won't pick him, but I like to win fantasy, and I think he does have a solid role on this team. He may not necessarily start, but I still think he plays close to 30 minutes. And it wasn't that long ago where he was a top 30, 35 player. So he's got that upside. So if he can get the minutes, he can get that role back. I think getting him at 102nd overall, I think is a solid pick. Similar to Trey Murphy, we've discussed him, but 115, same boat there. Shaden Sharp, another late round, less of a flyer, but a little bit of hype. Coming off of a nice end to last season. And with Damian Lillard expected to be traded, perhaps Shaden Sharp becomes more of that focus as well on the offense. So let's see. And again, at 126 overall, I'm willing to take that chance. Christian Wood, I've never really enjoyed having Christian Wood on my team, but at 139, I needed some more big man stats at this stage. And you noticed how there is that run of bigs from round 8 to round 10 to 11. And if you don't get them in those stages, you may struggle. but Christian Wood was almost my consolation prize in round 12. But again, at 139, I think he may not start for the Lakers, but again, he will have a solid role moving forward. So let's see what happens there. And last one, he probably hasn't had the hype that I was hoping he would. But Jalen Johnson, I think he's a young up-and-comer. He was always in John Collins' sort of shadow, and now John Collins has moved away. Let's see what that opportunity has for Jalen Johnson for the Hawks. So there we go, at 150.
There you go. So we'll try to write up for our teams as well, aside from this episode. But before we end our episode a little bit later, just
I have to say 2 things. Sorry for interrupting.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Arik.
Can I comment on something? There's no moral in fantasy. I'm with you, D-Mac. We're picking the players to win, okay?
That's right.
There's no ethic, okay? It's a game of thrones. We're doing everything we can to win. And if Miles Bridges will bring us the win, okay? So we soak it, okay? We won't smell it, okay? But we'll take it.
Exactly
and
right.
I really like both of your teams. I really like them. The small issue I have with your team, Daniel, is that you only have one center. So if you're playing in a format with 2 centers, it's a problem. But I know you're already playing exclusively on a format with only one center spot, right?
Yeah, typically Yahoo. I do have one ESPN league, which is a shame. But yeah, that's something that I have to take into account as well.
Yeah, so let's have a quick round. Any player you don't like with, do you have copies of our teams, right? So any player you don't like from Arik's team, D-Mac?
Probably Bojan Bogdanovic. Not necessarily I don't like him, but I was just trying to understand the rationale, because I know that he had a bigger role last season. His numbers look fantastic, but that was with Cade Cunningham not having that usage in that team. So I was wondering what your thoughts are, both of you guys, on Bojan.
I agree with you, okay? And if it was in a vacuum, it was a horrible pick. He's not worth owning, okay? But in assist and steal span, he has value as a scorer with high free throw percentage, and that's why I picked him. The only reason. I guess I had better alternatives. If I picked Hero before, I wouldn't have to pick him now. But I was desperate for points because I don't want to punt points suddenly. With Durant and everything, it's not a smart thing to do to waste so much value. So I needed to save the category as I saw it, and he was the best choice. I wanted other players, but they already had been taken. But
Gotcha.
I completely agree about per game is going to be 160, something like that. Really not worth a pick.
He's also a candidate to be moved, I guess. Looking at how Detroit, structure their team right now, and then the direction they're going. There's a good chance he gets moved at some point. Even though if he won't get moved, I'm still gonna assume that they would let Osar get some of his, which probably would take some time away from a usage guy like Bojan Bogdanovic. I'm gonna pick for DMAC. Someone that I didn't like was already mentioned earlier, and then I think he also agrees with it. Christian Wood. The only upside I see for Christian Wood is knock on the wood, no pun intended. If something happens with Anthony Davis, then he's going to have a better season. But aside from that, a healthy Anthony Davis, and Christian Wood on the court, I'm just thinking that if Anthony Davis really wants to play at 4, and then they let Christian Wood to play at the center, I guess. At some point, they will notice how not good of a defender Christian Wood is. So I'm just contemplating how would the coach and the Lakers adjust on that, because it's not that Jackson Hayes is good, right? But playing Jared Vanderbilt might be better in some situations, just because of the defensive weakness of Christian Wood. So in my assessment, I might have like dinged a couple of minutes for Christian Wood with respect to that. So if you need a center and then you're expecting a defensive stat from it, then I don't think Christian Wood would be the best option. But then again, at least for this situation, DMAC was placed into a corner, and the corner of that place is made of wood. So I guess that's the reason. But yeah, any
Papi, there's
feedback on
no
that?
such thing as a healthy Anthony Davis.
Sorry?
There's no such thing as a healthy Anthony Davis. Okay,
There you go.
it's a myth, a legend.
But he's arguably healthier than Zion. So
I've seen people in cemeteries that are healthier than Zion.
I love Arik. So Arik, any player you don't like in my team?
Actually, I like most of them. I can nitpick, but I like your team. I really do.
Oh.
Let me I already can see it. Can you say the names of
Yes,
your
sure,
players
sure.
again?
I want you to not like one of my players, but yeah. So I started with Nikola Jokic, Carl Anthony Towns, Jimmy Butler, OG Anunoby,
Love,
Tyrese
love, love,
Maxey,
love.
Chris Middleton, Tyce Jones, Jalen Duren, Wendell Carter Jr., Bruce Brown, Paul Reed, Tari Eason, and then Javon Carter.
I love all your picks. I really do. I think there's value in all of them. I really do. I really love your team. I think in a league, you're the favorite.
Yeah.
With this team, some things can go wrong. Butler can die, Towns can die, but you did a great job, in my opinion.
And then I guess I have also a upper hand picking first as well. And then I don't know, I'm just comfortable picking back to back. I just love it. Because you're just waiting for a couple of while and then boom, boom.
I really don't
double
like
punch.
it. I don't like
Really?
picking
You
back.
don't like it?
Yeah, you need to think about two players. It's hard to think about two players. I prefer picking at the middle. I'm one of the only ones that that prefer that, but I prefer that.
But
I
Debak
agree with
also
you.
like picking in the middle, right?
I do, yeah.
Okay.
Unless I can get Jokic at 1. Absolutely.
Yeah,
I'm
of
fine with
course.
picking number 2.
Yeah.
Absolutely
Yes.
fine.
There you go. Couple of rounds before we end the show. I wanted to involve our audience, right? So I just wanted to pick several players here to talk about. So at round 8, I think this is good brother AJ in the house, one of our friends there. He actually picked is he Scoot Henderson. So any thoughts? Sorry, it's round 9 rather. So Scoot Henderson. So if Damian Lillard gets moved, and then I'm just thinking the possible trade-off out of Damian Lillard is either they get someone like the DeAndre Ayton, or maybe if from the Miami Heat, if it's like a Tyler Hero package. But other than that, any possible impact for Scoot Henderson the moment that Dame goes out? Because logically, you think that, hey, it's going to be Scoot's team. But on the back of my mind, yes, it does. But I'm pretty sure he'll definitely get some counting stats. But we all know that rookie guard tends to be, a little bit more inefficient, turns the ball more over, especially with Scoot Henderson, who doesn't really have that, a steady jump shot as of the moment as a rookie, right? So in an essence, just to get your thoughts, just to balance it out, do you like it, or is it something that you think doesn't have a lot of impact? DMAC.
I don't dislike it too much, and they will prioritize him if Dame is to go. But at this stage, he's still on that squad. So I still think, what did you say, round 8, round 9?
Round
It's
9.
higher for me. We know, yeah, as you said, that rookie guards do struggle a little bit, but more so in the 9CAT format when their turnovers tend to be quite high. If you disregard those, then it's a lot easier to read and to swallow that as well. He has that potential, that fun factor as well. So if you want to go and support him and really enjoy watching him and get those points and really get the crowd involved, then why not at that level? And I just try to look at some of the players taken after him in that round. What have we got, Scoot? We've got Gary Trent Jr. Who would you guys rather have, Scoot or Gary Trent Jr.?
I prefer Gary Trent. But I think Scoot will have his assists, steals, but he's not going to be efficient, not going to have 3-pointers. I prefer, at this point, Gary Trent. You know, Scoot's outlook is great if I'm going to think about the next couple of years. But as a rookie, I usually tend not to like rookies. I don't trust them.
Yeah.
Oh, Arik, so after that, you took Bojan and then Zubac. Who would you take?
Yes.
Scoot, Bojan, or Zubac?
If in my punt, of course, I'm not going to take Scoot because I'm punting assists and steals. Scoot is ranked about 300 in my punt. But if you're talking about picking without a punt or without a strategy, I think I'll pick Zubat or Scoot. Of course, I'm not picking Bojan at this point if I'm not punting and he's suiting me and is perfect for me. And it depends of my needs at this point. Okay, so if I need a center or big categories, I'll take Zubats, and if I need a guard, I'll take Scoot. But I really don't like the low efficiency players, and sadly, in his rookie year, he's supposed to be one of them.
Yeah. I know, Arik, you have to drop off right now. Can I ask a last question before
Yes,
you drop off?
of course.
So what can you say about this? So in our mock draft now, Nick Claxton was drafted over DeAndre Ayton, Rudy Gobert, and Jarrett Allen. I was just thinking in the past, people won't definitely draft Claxton over those three bigs. So, any thoughts about this trend, and then any thoughts about Nick Claxton as well? So again, in our draft, Nick Claxton was drafted earlier than Ayton, Gobert, and Jarrett.
Who are you asking? You asking me or
Yes,
Dimek?
yes, you. I'm asking you, Arik.
Me. I prefer Claxton, of course. Of course, he's a great shot blocker. He's a young player, supposed only to get better. During the season, we've seen him getting better on offense, okay? And he's got more to offer than the other guys, as I see it. He's ranked higher for a reason.
There you go. So yeah, just want to really get your thoughts on that because again, the name thing, how people perceive players in terms of their names and then maybe their teams. That's the reason why in some leagues Nick Claxton gets overlooked, and then centers like the Robert Williams, the Mitch Robinson gets picked ahead of them despite the deficiencies and low upside. Is because of the name in the team because Boston Celtics and New York Knicks. So yeah, thanks for that, Arik. And if just let us know if you need to drop off because I have a couple of questions as well. A couple more, a little bit more for DMAC here, just to really involve our draft.
Okay, so I'll say goodbye because I have to go. We have a fest. We have a Jewish holiday called Yom Kippur. We're fasting in Yom Kippur. So I need to go and eat before it enters. Okay, so it was great. And see you next week.
See you, Arik.
Thanks,
Pleasure.
Arik. Have a good meal. It's
Thank you.
something. It's something great for us.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. So, DMAC, just couple more minutes because I really wanted to make this Mac draft very valuable to our audience. So, something that I noticed here as well is let me ask you a question. You pick Paul George, right?
Mhm.
In that area, a player like Jordan Poole, who is another player who is super hyped right now, would you still really pick Paul George in case you have a different strategy or a different rank, and then sorry, a different number of pick? Would you still choose Paul George over Jordan Poole?
Yeah, irrespective of strategy, I would still take PG-13 over Poole. And you know how high I am on Jordan Poole coming into the season. But we've seen Paul George do it before. Yes, he's not the same player, but I think that he can. I think his ceiling is higher than Jordan Poole's. And you know how much I love Poole, but I think Paul George is the better bet, particularly in that fourth or fifth round. Um, yeah, it's PG-13 all the way. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, actually, generally, I would still pick Paul George. That the value is like very different. And I was actually reserving this question to check out Arik's response to you because he doesn't kind of like Jordan Poole. But yeah, Paul George is the pick here. Arguably there could be there could be there could be a situation wherein I pick Jordan Poole. Maybe if news comes in and I don't feel too safe in terms of picking Paul George. Maybe if the league doesn't have IL or IL plus, maybe I could there could be an idea or a thought to my head that, hey, just pick the healthier guy. But I would definitely pick Paul George.
And
Um,
also think about there is still a risk with Jordan Poole later in the season
yeah,
when fantasy playoffs are going to happen. So Washington are going to be quite bad this season, and probably my pick for the worst in the league. So it wouldn't surprise me if there's going to be some mysterious illnesses and whatnot at the back end of the season for Jordan Poole. So yeah, that carries some risk as well. So you weigh that up alongside of Paul George, just constant injury risk or sit concerns with the Clippers. I'd still take Paul George.
another question from me. If this league only has one IL plus, would you still draft both Trey Murphy and Miles Bridges?
Trey Murphy and Miles Bridges. Yeah, Miles Bridges is out for 10 games to start the season. I think that's fine. Probably the more questionable one would be Paul George. You've got Kyrie, you've got less so Miles Bridges, but you've got Trey Murphy as well. So there's a bit of risk in that team. But yeah, if there's only one IL, I'll probably speak to the commissioner first and see if we can increase that. But I would still be comfortable taking that approach.
Gotcha. And then another thing here, something that I noticed as well is Jalen Green. So Jalen Green was picked here a little bit earlier than usual. So Matt picked Jalen Green at round 8, uh, fourth of that round. Usually players like Markel Fultz, Miles Bridges, Keegan Murray, um, are getting picked ahead of Jalen Green just because of his deficiency. Do you think people are now getting uh more comfortable knowing that they have Fred VanVleet, they have a better coach. The organization has shifted to a more serious and veteran-driven organization. So, do you think that's something that people needs to also look at in terms of drafting in fantasy?
Yeah, I think so. I think he sort of ruled the roost, even with KPJ. And there's a lot of John Wall discussions around how immature these guys were and they needed to pull their heads in. And I think this season, Houston are going to be a hell of a lot better. They've got that veteran presence, as you mentioned. So I think there's more mouths to feed as well. There's more talent and more younger talent coming through who will get their shots, who will get their usage. So I think people are catching on to that. Jalen Green, I was big on last season just because there wasn't much else going on alongside Şengün. But this season, I think I probably wouldn't even touch him in the top 100.
Oh, yeah, totally makes sense. Last couple more. I'm looking at here and checking in the last couple of rounds. I see Kevon Looney being picked possibly because the run that this specific team, I think this is also AJ, wasn't able to get a big man, right? So my question here is, we all know Kevon Looney is like that rebound guy that the GSW um, leans on. But now with CP3 in their roster and possibly moving Draymond Green to the center like a little bit longer than usual, how does that impact Kevon Looney's value, especially that he doesn't offer a lot of stats, he doesn't score a lot? Would you still be comfortable picking him in the latter part of the draft if you missed out on the bigs?
I think he's a really low upside player. If you wanted to be competitive and get those solid rebounds, sure, but he's not going to provide the same stats that he was last season with CP3 there. There is talk that Kevon Looney will come off the bench, and that really will hurt his fantasy production moving forward. So I would probably take a flyer on another big if you were really desperate. There's been talk that Derek Lively may even start. I don't think that'll happen, but there were a few posts on Twitter today or X that I saw about him starting. I'm not too sure if that's going to happen, but I'd rather take a flyer on one of these younger bigs, even someone who's been there before in a Rashawn Holmes. I know they haven't really talked about who's going to be starting on that Dallas team, but perhaps it could be Lively. But yeah, I would rather stay away from Kevon Looney just with that really poor upside.
And speaking of Rashawn Holmes, he was previously ranked within top 50 when he was really actively playing. Someone that can give you good percentages, steals and blocks combination from a big man. So let's see. My only problem with Rashawn Holmes and even Derek Lively, and is Dwight Powell, because he's Mark Cuban's boy for some reason, and then that timeshare of those three is my concern. But again, if it's a last pick, so and you need blocks, I would agree. Derek Lively could be that guy. From the early rounds, these players seem to be kind of like, for me, falling for some reason. In the past, the names are Fred VanVleet, Desmond Bain, and Pascal Siakam. Those are getting dinged by someone like Cade Cunningham, a Victor Wembanyama, or even a DeJounte Murray. So sometimes they prefer those over those three. If in your head, or in how you strategize in terms of drafting, do you kind of like initially choose the player you like, or you rather choose a player that suits your build? Because sometimes it's really, I don't know, it's really tempting to go for that. Hey, I know this player is good, upside is there, but it doesn't fit my build. Because when I check those names, these are efficient player. Sorry. Vayne is an efficient player. Maybe people are having a hard time, especially head to head. Putting him, because he doesn't have any category that is pretty much strong. FBV on the other hand, as possibly the deficiency and the gray area or the unknown. I don't know. So any thoughts on this trend?
Yeah, look, I'd probably take the better player. At the early stages, sometimes it is hard to build that strategy or even think about a punt strategy unless you are someone like Arik at that 12 position where you go in and thinking, look, this is how my draft is going to go. That's fine. It's something that I tend not to do. So in those early stages, I tend to go for the guy that will have the better outlook, who's proven. FEV's proven. Yes, he's going to a different team this season, but I think he's going to be one of the leaders. So I'm comfortable taking FBV quite early in that draft.
Yeah, and FBV is another uh, possible upside because he's the lone star in that team. Last question for me, because we've stretched the time, and I guess we've already checked several names here. Let me we talked about big having a run at some point, right? So let me give you a couple of names. I have here Daniel Gafford, Mark Williams, Jalen Duren, Jabari Smith Jr., and Zach Collins. And let's put in Okongwu there. So that's 6. I think I can remember it. Can you rank them in terms of your preference of choosing first? Because we have tires, right? Fantasy analysts like Josh Lloyd and Sports Ethos, and other known personality in the industry has their tires, right? I do understand these bigs are within the same tires or at least succeeding tire. So I wanted to get your thoughts on these bigs. I know you posted a tweet of this, right? A couple of weeks or months before.
Yeah, I've been quite vocal around the value of these bigs late in drafts. It is quite difficult to rank these guys, but I've gone Gafford, and I did pick Gafford in this mock draft earlier than the other guys. So I've gone Gafford just because he could, I hate to use that term, win you blocks. He's not going to win you blocks, but he's going to be a major contributor in the block department, field goals as well. So real traditional center stats that you could get in round 7, 8, 9. Similar with Mark Williams, but less of the blocks. Jalen Duran even less so. Longer term, if we were looking at a dynasty, I think Duran, being only 19 years old, has the best outlook of all of these guys. So they're the top 3. I like Jabari Smith Jr. He's slightly different in the way that he plays compared to the other guys. So he's more a 4 or a stretch 5 with Şengün there. So he's a little bit different because you're not going to get those same traditional center stats that you do with the aforementioned guys. Zach Collins is slightly different again, but more similar to the first 3. But he does also provide you with assists. He's sneaky good with assists, and I think he'll play a major role alongside Wemby as well. So he's probably in amongst it. So 6th, I think. We talked about Okongwu. So yeah, his baseline was based on last season's numbers. Sharing with Capella, his baseline is around that 70 to 80 rank, which is fantastic. And if he gets even more minutes, the sky's the limit with this guy. But we just don't know that. Capella hasn't been moved. So there's a few uncertainties around Okongwu. So they're all in that cluster. Gafford is still clear number 1 for me. Maybe Mark Williams and Okongwu, followed by Duran. And then Jabari Smith. That's probably my order. And did you mention the sixth one there?
Oh yeah, I think you mentioned all of them already. Zach Collins, is the other one. Just to kind of like, because this is a good topic, to be honest. I love this topic, picking and understanding which to pick, because sometimes it's hard to not get your players, but it's also hard to get a player if they are all available. So I guess a lot of GMs will definitely get something out of this conversation. So let me go back to, so you've mentioned the upside and all. Let me just like let's give a couple of seconds of discussion per player. So Mark Williams. So for Mark Williams, do you kind of like mind the him being injury prone? Is not that he wasn't really injured like big time, but there's a history, and then also on top of that, Charlotte is just like I don't know their direction. So are this consideration valid for someone who has all of these players like in the same level to consider just to find someone on top? Say for example, in your case, Daniel Gafford.
The same consideration goes for all of the guys that we've mentioned. They're all on teams that are not at that elite level. They're all going to struggle. So there's always that potential that they do sit games later in the season. But Mark Williams, we saw what he can do at the end of last season, and that synergy that he was able to build with LaMelo at times as well. Brought that defensive nous as well. And it may not have shown up in his stats. He may not have got monster levels of blocks, but the Charlotte Hornets, just their defensive rating was a lot better with him on the floor, and then working in conjunction with LaMelo, able to roll to the basket. Some of that pick and roll stuff is going to be pretty exciting for him. He's going to have easy baskets. So he could be a double-double threat with a maybe upside of 2 blocks per game. And that's probably top 50, top 60 potential right there. So I love what he brings to the table. I've never considered him to be injury prone. Perhaps he's had that in the past, but he looks solid as a house last season. And I don't think Nick Richards is going to take a lot of minutes off of him this coming season.
Yeah, actually people are thinking more of like the PJ Washington signing, because he played some big man minutes. But again, reason behind that is they doesn't at that point they don't have like a very good big yet, and maybe also based on the coach's decision. So maybe that's the reason. But it's a different situation right now, especially with the performance of Mark Williams. Let's go over Jalen Duren. Um, there's a lot of bigs in Detroit. I guess that's one of the big possible reason why people won't draft Jalen Duren. Are you are you concerned with the other bigs? Because me, I am not really concerned.
I'm not concerned. I just hope that Detroit don't stuff it up and start sharing minutes with these guys. There's a lot of guys on that team that could play that position, but he's the best of the lot. And at 19, why wouldn't you play him when you've got that age group and you've got that demographic on the team? You've got to build him, and hopefully they see that they're not all morons. So hopefully they're not all morons. So you've got to do that as well. So I think that's the best thing for Detroit long term and also short term. And so I wouldn't have any issues drafting him this season.
There you go. And then last for me is Jabari Parker. So how much
Smith,
of
Jabari
the
Smith.
Jabari Smith rather. Jabari Parker is already out of the league. So yeah. So
Although
Jabari
he'll
Smith.
probably still be available in ESPN leagues. I'll
Oh
probably
yeah.
look that up now.
Of course, ESPN. Who do you call this? Japet Aguilar before. So Japet Aguilar played in the NBA League, NBA G League of the San Antonio Spurs before. So it was fun to see a Filipino in our fantasy. I was actually able to screenshot that. And of course, ESPN, who does it better? That's the lone reason why you love ESPN, getting to see uh your Filipino idol in fantasy. So yeah. Speaking of Jabari Smith Jr., um how confident are you that what we saw in the summer league would translate to the actual regular season? And then also, how excited are you, or do you like what you hear and read about the how Ime Udoka loves Jabari Smith in his lineup?
It is exciting. I don't think it's going to translate. Obviously, he was not the Lone Ranger, but he was leading that summer league team. So it didn't really surprise me. The start of the summer league looked rough. And I know that game where he really broke out, that first half, people were calling for him to be benched, which was quite funny. But yeah, he was outstanding. And I think he's got that pedigree. He was touted as the number one draft pick last season, didn't go number one, obviously. But I'm really excited. So he's got that veteran presence. He's got the work ethic, and I'm seeing workout videos every week now. And he's looking in fine touch, great fitness levels as well. So I am excited. But like I said, at Houston, there's a lot of mouths to feed. So it's a tough one, but I really like his game, and it does translate nicely with fantasy. Yes, his field goal struggled at several stages of last season, but I think he can pick that up. Those blocks are nice. The rebounds are really nice. He's actually solid at the free throw line. So I could easily see a top 80 season incoming for him. So no concerns whatsoever.
Yeah, and then I think the situation that the Houston Rockets have right now is one good example of how the coach and the system shifts the value of the players, not only in reality but in fantasy. So understanding that they have a new coach who's a defensive coach who likes to play a little bit faster. Um, to be honest, Houston Rockets, people thought Houston Rockets was fast. They aren't really that fast. Why? Because they don't defend. So there's no opportunity for them to really run and gun, right? So now it's going to be different. So again, just want to really emphasize on that part of analyzing how would reality shift could impact the fantasy basketball that we all love.
Absolutely. And we've also talked about how Shengun could be impacted sometimes negatively for the
Yeah.
same reason there. If the D's not there, then perhaps they go small ball five and have Jabari Smith Jr. at the five. Tari Eason, who you picked in this mock as well, so perhaps he plays alongside of Jabari Smith and goes that small ball lineup. So that's potential as well, depending on the night, depending on the matchup. So it's exciting. There's a few uncertainties around that team, but yeah, there is that upside there.
Yeah. And then KPJ being out of that team. would also definitely help their minutes because and usage. So
Yeah.
your
Well, he
boy,
wasn't a true point guard in my eyes. He wasn't a true point guard. So I think a better facilitator with FEV, I think that's going to help everyone.
and then your boy is going to say amen with that
Poster boy.
opportunity, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we kind of like extended a little bit, but I just saw an opportunity to discuss something I think is important. So again, it was nice episode having an episode with you, DMAC. Arik, I hope you're eating right now. I hope you ate something great for me and DMAC here. So guys, thank you so much. DMAC, anything you want to plug?
NBA Fantasy Bible, you know where to find me on Twitter. Thanks again, Roy, and thanks, Arik. Hopefully he's having a nice feast. I thought he was getting a bit hangry at the end. Just joking. No, he was really good.
Yeah, and then we all love Arik. I love the flavor he brings to us to this group, right? So looking forward to our next episode. So we're gonna talk about our next episode. Possibly let's try to break down I don't know per team or per tire. So let's talk about it offline. But guys, I hope you had fun. We usually put in just an episode every week, so that's the reason why we try to extend for a little bit. So please do extend with us. We're a fun bunch, especially with Arik, with Dimak, and with me as well. So I hope you like it. I know you love it. So always follow us, NBA Fantasy Bible, Day to Day Fantasy, and of course F Fantasy Basketball PH. So guys, happy weekend. Bye bye.
Bye, guys.